Welcome, traveler, to the Embers archive. Settle in. For tonight we unearth the story of magic born from ash and a love forged in shadow. Our tale begins not with a grand explosion, but with a dying flame, and a forbidden truth buried deep within the dust of history. The kingdom of Solara shimmered under the protection of the eternal flame, a beacon of its victory over the exiled Shadow Weavers. For generations, its golden light held back the creeping blight. But now, the flame was sputtering, its power waning, and the monstrous blight was clawing its way back into the world. In the quiet solitude of the Grand Archive, a young scribe named Elara made a discovery that would shatter her reality. Known mockingly as the Ash Scribe for her laughably weak fire magic, she found a truth hidden in the forbidden pages of an ancient tome. The official histories were a lie. The blight wasn't a curse from the shadows. It was a cosmic imbalance. An imbalance that only a union of flame and shadow could heal. To save her world, she had to defy every law, betray every teaching, and find the exiled Shadow King. Leaving her home was an act of treason punishable by death, but Elara's resolve was stronger than her fear. She ventured into the desolate Shadowlands, a place of twisted trees and perpetual twilight. Her journey was brutally short. She was captured almost immediately by silent shadow-clad warriors and dragged to a fortress carved from the heart of a black mountain. There, on a throne of polished obsidian, sat the Shadow King, Kael. He was nothing like the horned monster from her history books. He was a king forged from twilight and sorrow, with eyes of molten silver and a face hardened by grief. His voice, when it came, was deep and measured, laced with a cold bitterness. A flame bird, so far from her nest. What does Elara want now? Have you come to finish the slaughter? Elara pushed herself to her knees, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She met his gaze, her own voice clear and steady, despite the terror coiling in her gut. The world is dying, she declared. The histories are wrong. The blight is an imbalance only we can fix, ... together. With a defiant push, she sent the ancient book sliding across the polished floor toward his throne. Kael's expression remained an unreadable mask of stone. Lies, he spat. You will be my prisoner until your kingdom turns to dust. Days bled into a silent, tainty stalemate. Elara was confined, but not harmed. Kael watched her, his hatred warring with a flicker of something else. Finally, unable to ignore the creeping decay he could feel even in his own lands, he gave in. He read the tome, the ancient script, the forgotten language. It was all authentic. That night, he appeared at her chamber door, his grim face a mixture of fury and disbelief. The text is authentic, he conceded, his voice a low growl. It speaks of a ritual. Show me your magic. Elara held out her trembling hands. With all her focus, she summoned her power. A tiny, pale flame, barely larger than an ember, flickered to life in her palm. It was pathetic. Kael extended his own hand, and a wisp of pure, liquid shadow coiled from his fingertips, not repelled by her light, but inexplicably drawn to it. His silver eyes were intense. Bring them together, he commanded quietly. Hesitantly, she moved her hand closer. The moment the wisp of shadow touched a tiny flame, a shockwave of energy erupted from her hand. But her ember didn't die. Instead, it blazed, transforming into a brilliant, impossible silver. Power, raw and untamed, surged through her veins. She saw the utter shock register on Kael's face. The book is right, he breathed, his voice strained. Their fragile alliance was tested almost immediately. A creature of the blight, a horrifying amalgam of twisted limbs and shrieking despair, was drawn to the sudden surge of their combined power. It tore through the fortress walls as if they were paper. Alone, neither of them stood a chance against its overwhelming corruption. Kael moved like a phantom, his shadows lashing out, but the beast absorbed them. Elara's fire barely singed its hide. Now, scribe, Kael roared, a sharp command that cut through the chaos. As Kael unleashed a torrent of shadow to bind the creature, Elara thrust her hands forward, not with a flicker of fire, but with the newfound silver light. Their magic intertwined in midair, forming a spear of shimmering light that struck the beast with the force of a thunderclap. They fought as one, a dance of darkness and light. His shadows would bind it, and her light would strike true. With a final, unified blast of silver energy, They vaporized the monster. In the ringing silence that followed, Kael turned to her, his silver eyes burning not with hatred, but with a newfound, grudging respect. "You are no ash scribe, Elara," he said, his voice a low, almost reverent whisper. "You are a firestorm." There was no more time for doubt. They raced back to Solara, only to find the capital city in chaos. The blight was seeping through the streets, and the eternal flame, once a towering inferno, was now a pathetic wisp of dying smoke. Ignoring the horrified cries of the high mages, they ran past the guards and onto the sacred dais at the heart of the citadel. Kael gripped her arm, his gaze locking with hers. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice urgent. "This will join us. Our magic, our minds, everything." Elara looked into his molten silver eyes, saw her own reflection there, and found not fear, but certainty. She nodded. "I am." They took each other's hands. She unleashed a torrent of fire, a storm she never knew she possessed, and he met it with a river of pure night. Where their hands clasped, their magic met not in conflict, but in a perfect, harmonious union. A column of brilliant, silver light erupted from the dais, soaring into the sky. A wave of pure cleansing energy washed over the land, dissolving the blight like mist in the morning sun. The eternal flame roared back to life, no longer gold but a shimmering, stable pillar of silver light. When the blinding light finally subsided, Elara and Kael stood together, their hands still clasped, an unbreakable bond forged between them. The balance was restored. In the days that followed, a new pact was forged, not of war, but of understanding between their peoples. Standing on the highest balcony of the citadel, looking out over a kingdom reborn under a silver sky, they knew their journey had just begun. The Ash Scribe and the Shadow King had not just saved their world, their love had become the bridge between two halves of a whole. And in the heart of the archive, a new story was being written. Not in ink, but in the eternal silver flame of their bond. Thank you for joining us in the Embers archive. If you're captivated by the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. We have many more tailies waiting in the ashes. Until next time.